Have you ever watched someone you love slowly drift away and not know why? There was no big fight, no clear breaking point. She was still there, just quieter, distant. And when you finally asked, "Are you okay?" she smiled and said, "I'm fine." But you knew she wasn't. Something was slipping and you didn't know how to hold on. Here's what I've learned, in my life and in the lives of countless men I've sat with. Most women don't leave in anger. They leave in silence, not because they stopped loving you, but because they stopped feeling seen. There are 7 subtle moments women deeply crave, not grand gestures, but quiet signs that say, "I still choose you." Miss them, and love begins to fade, even if she's still lying beside you. If this feels familiar, stay with me. What comes next might change everything. Over the years, I've sat across from many men in therapy rooms. We think women want passion. We think they want intensity. But the truth is, most women are starving for their partner's presence. I remember walking across a parking lot on a windy fall evening. My wife was beside me. I placed my hand gently on her back, not to control her, not to move her, but simply to say, "I'm here." She paused mid-step, looked at me with soft eyes and whispered, "Thank you." That moment stayed with her longer than a dozen fancy date nights, because it wasn't about the touch itself, it was about the intention behind it. Later that month, we were in line at the grocery store. She was frustrated, rushing, trying to finish in time to pick up her sister from the airport. I noticed her breathing quicken. I gently reached for her hand, squeezed it once, and didn't say a word. She calmed. That night she told me, "That moment right there meant more than anything you've said in weeks." A subtle, respectful touch says, "I see you. I'm not in a rush. I am with you." In a world full of men who reach to get, presence is the man who reaches to reassure. And women feel that psychologically, a gentle, intentional touch activates safety centers in the brain. It releases oxytocin, the hormone of bonding. It lowers her defenses and raises her trust. If you're over 55 and wondering why passion seems to fade, it's often not because of age. It's because of absence. Touch her shoulder when she shares something vulnerable. Place a hand on her, back when you walk through a crowd. Let your hand rest on hers while watching a movie. Not to escalate anything, just to say, "I still feel lucky to be near you." Be the man who brings safety, not stimulation. Did you know that for many women, one of the most powerful ways to feel connected is through something as simple as a gentle touch to her hair? It's such a small thing, isn't it? Brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. And yet, when done with presence, it can melt walls she didn't know she had up. Years ago, I was driving through Tennessee with a woman I cared deeply for. She was telling me about her father's illness. Her voice trembling, words held together by sheer strength. I listened quietly. And without thinking, I reached across and gently moved her hair away from her face. She paused. Her voice fell. Silent, then she turned to me, her eyes soft, full of something between gratitude and exhaustion, and without a word, she laid her head on my shoulder. That gesture didn't fix anything. But in that moment, it gave her something she hadn't felt in a long time, emotional permission to finally let go. Another time, I watched my brother and his wife argue during a family camping trip. Voices were rising. She turned away from him, clearly overwhelmed. He didn't say a word, just walked up behind her, gently brushed her bangs back, kissed her temple, and quietly followed her. He gave her space, waited, and about 10 minutes later, she reached for his hand. They didn't talk about the argument again that night. They were close again, as if nothing had ever come between them. You know, the scalp, psychologists say, is one of the most sensitive parts of the body, neurologically and emotionally. Touching a woman's hair isn't about ownership or belongings. It's about emotional closeness. It helped her realize that the man she trusted was still her pillar, someone who truly meant something to her. I see you're carrying something heavy. I want you to know I'm here. You don't have to be strong right now, but in the end, timing is everything. This kind of moment only happens when emotional rapport already exists, when she feels safe, when there's softness in the air. And the truth is, many men, especially those of us taught to hold it all in, often miss these chances. We're too busy trying to fix or too afraid to move. But presence isn't always about words or solutions. Sometimes it's about hands that know when to pause and simply be there. You can't fake that kind of moment. But when it comes and you meet it with quiet intention, she will remember. Maybe not the exact touch, but the way she felt, safe, seen, and softly held. And sometimes that's all it takes to bring two people back to each other. We live in a distracted world. Phones buzz, TVs blink, minds wander. Notifications never seem to stop. But nothing wounds a woman more quietly than feeling emotionally invisible. She could be sharing something light, like how her coworker is, annoying, or something deep, like her worries about her aging mother. And if your eyes glaze over, if your gaze drifts, she doesn't feel safe to share anymore. She won't fight for your attention. She'll just stop giving you her stories. In an Applebee's one evening, I saw a man and woman sitting across from each other. She was animated, engaged. He kept glancing at the football game playing on the TV behind her. She slowly grew quiet, finished her food in silence, and stared out the window. That's how relationships fade, not with a bang, but with slow disinterest. Last year, my friend Mark told me how he saved his second marriage. After a painful divorce in his 40s, he realized he had never truly listened. He said, "This time I make it a point to put my phone down, look her in the eye, and say nothing until she finishes, even if it takes 15 minutes. That changed everything." Women crave eye contact that says, "This moment matters. You matter." When you look at her, really look, and without screens, without judgment, without rushing, she softens. This is not about staring. It's about being with her. In Stoicism, attention is power. Where your attention goes, your presence flows. Who says flirtation dies after 50? The truth is, it doesn't have to. It just changes. Flirting at this stage in life isn't about clever pickup lines or trying too hard to be charming. It's about connection, about warmth, about that quiet spark that says, "I still see you, I still enjoy you." A few years back, I met a widower in Kansas City, 62, former firefighter. He told me, "You know what gets her smiling every time? I tease her about her terrible coffee, then surprise her with her favorite cup the next morning." He wasn't trying to win her over. He was just having fun with her, not at her expense. That kind of flirting doesn't come from insecurity. It comes from delighting in her presence. One evening I watched a retired couple at a jazz bar in Chicago. She wore red heels. He leaned in and whispered something. She laughed, swatted his arm and kissed his cheek. I heard him say, "That's the same smile you had in 1985, and it still wrecks me." It wasn't flashy, it wasn't scripted. It was just two people who hadn't forgotten how to play, even after all those years. The truth is, that kind of playful energy is something you can bring into your relationship too, even now. You don't need to be poetic. You just need to be present and a little playful. Say something like, "You still trying to impress me with that lasagna? Cute. I'm only letting you win this argument because you're beautiful." Your laugh is trouble. Don't use it during serious discussions. Last summer, I visited an old neighbor, 74 years old, married for 51 of them. While we sat on his porch, his wife walked by with a laundry basket. He looked at her and said, "Still carrying that thing like you carried our kids." She rolled her eyes but smiled so gently I almost missed it. He didn't say it to be funny. He said it to remind her she's still seen and still cherished. Keep it light. Keep it sincere. Flirting isn't about being impressive. It's about being playful in a way that says, you still matter to me. Women over 50 don't want to be dazzled. They want to be enjoyed. To feel like someone still delights in who they are, not just what they do. When you flirt without needing a reaction, just because it feels good to share joy, you stand apart. You become the man who still winks across the room, who still texts her from the next room just to say, you're trouble, but you're my favorite kind. And that kind of energy, it doesn't fade with age. It just gets better with time, if you let it. This one's subtle, but it carries more weight than most men ever realize. You're sitting across the table. Dinner's quiet. She's sipping wine. There's no tension, just peace. And somewhere in that space you say, I had this dream last night. We were walking by the ocean, just talking. I don't even remember what we said, but when I woke up it felt like we belonged there. She might laugh. She might go quiet, but inside, her heart leans in, because dreams aren't planned. They aren't polished or performed. They come from the part of us we don't always control, the part that feels deeper than words. And when you share a dream where she appeared, not as a fantasy, but as a presence, you're telling her something no candlelit dinner ever could. Even when I'm not trying, even when I'm asleep, you're still in my world. That matters more than we think. Women don't just want to be loved in the real world. They want to know they linger. In your thoughts, in your memory, in the quiet parts of you rarely share with anyone else. A few years ago, I was working with a client in Vermont. He was in his mid-60s, remarried after losing his first wife. We talked a lot about emotional reconnection, how to rebuild something deeper than routine. One day, he said, I had this dream about Linda, my new wife. We were at this old cabin, no music, just snow falling outside. We weren't even talking, we were just dancing. He told her about it. She didn't laugh. She didn't brush it off. She cried. Then she told him, no one's ever shared something like that with me, not even in my first marriage. And in that moment, he saw it. It wasn't about what happened in the dream. It was about the fact that he brought her into the part of himself that felt private, unguarded, and deeply human. Dreams, real ones, aren't tools. They're gifts. You can't manufacture them. You shouldn't try, but when one happens and she's in it, say something, because it tells her, I think about you even when I don't mean to. You live somewhere deeper than words. You're not just part of my day, you're part of my peace. I once asked a man in his 70s, married 43 years, what he thinks keeps a woman close after all that time. He said, I tell her when I see her in my dreams. I don't try to sound romantic, I just tell her, and I think she likes knowing she shows up, even when I'm not awake. And he's right, a woman doesn't need fairy tales. She needs your truth, even if it's soft, even if it's strange. And when you tell her something like that, not as a tactic, not to impress, but because it moved you, it lands like poetry, not because it rhymes, but because it's real. So the next time she shows up in a dream and it leaves you with a feeling you can't quite explain, don't overthink it. Don't dismiss it. Look her in the eyes. Tell her where she was and how it made you feel. She may smile, she may stay silent, but trust me, she won't forget it, because you didn't just give her words, you gave her a place inside you. The good news is, it's not too late. You don't need a speech. You don't need fireworks or a perfect plan. You just need to begin gently, quietly, today. Because love, especially at this stage of life, isn't built on grand gestures. It's built on small, consistent acts of presence. Start with one thing, just one. One moment of full attention, when she's speaking, and you truly listen. One gentle touch, a hand on her back, a quiet squeeze, a moment of grounding. One playful tease, something light that makes her feel seen, not tested. One dream shared, something that reminds her she still lives in your quiet world. You'll be surprised how far these little acts go, how they soften tension, how they rekindle something you thought had faded, not just desire, but closeness, safety, that quiet sense of, I'm still chosen. This isn't about being perfect. You don't need to get every gesture right. You just need to mean it and show up, because a woman never forgets how you make her feel, especially when you remind her, in small sacred ways, that she's still beautiful in your eyes, still interesting to your mind, and still safe in your presence. So start today, not someday, not when you've figured it all out. Just today. She doesn't need perfection. She just needs you, present, warm, willing. That's enough, and it always has been. If this message touched something in you, don't just let it pass. Leave a comment below and tell me, which of these 5 are you ready to try this week? And if someone you care about, a brother, a friend, maybe even your son, needs to hear this, share it with him. This is smart, golden advice for men who still believe love is a choice, not just a feeling. Hit subscribe, and if this spoke to your heart, drop the words golden advice below. Let's keep growing together.